Welcome to our 15th anniversary event with Edouard Duval-Carrié. This is a studio tour with questions and answers. He's inviting us down to Miami. We are Randy and Linda Lewis, and we're longtime members and supporters of the Figge Art Museum, and we're really happy to have you here tonight for this special program. And this program holds a really special place in our hearts because we know that Edouard is pivotal to the Haitian art collection that exists at the Figge Art Museum. And the person who was responsible for that collection was Dr. Walter Neiswanger. And Edouard, as a young painter starting out, got to know Walter, and Edouard always credits Walter with being the first person to buy one of his paintings and give it to a museum. And I believe that's the large triptych, the Azaka painting that we have. And then because of that, I think, and for other reasons perhaps, Edouard has always remembered the Figge and been very kind and generous with us for years. Through these uncertain times, the Figge continues to bring art and people together, both on site and through this virtual museum. Throughout the performance, we're going to have a Raise the Paddle to support our continued mission of bringing art and people together through innovative ways with our community's health and safety in mind. And you can make a donation tonight by adding your gift to the Zoom chat room located at the bottom of your screen, which looks like a message bubble. Or go to a website which will be shared in the link of the chat room. Tonight, your gift will be matched dollar for dollar up to $5,000 thanks to the generosity of Tom and Jennifer Figge. Make sure also to bid on one of our great auction items included with the birthday events. There are several of them. An original 4-plate etching by renowned artist Didier William, who's also a Haitian, is one of them. At this time, we'd like to share a message from Michelle Hargrave, the CEO and Executive Director of the Figge Art Museum.
Hello, my name is Michelle Hargrave, and I'm Executive Director and CEO of the Figge Art Museum. I would like to welcome you to our 15th anniversary celebration. A special thank you to our sponsors and partners who made our anniversary celebration possible. I would also like to thank all of you. Because of strong support from our community over the past 15 years, the Figge has become a place where people of all backgrounds gather to learn, share, grow, connect, relax, and play. We're the cultural anchor of the Quad Cities, and last year we served over 86,000 people. We are proud to enrich the lives of those in our region now and to help build a stronger tomorrow through art education and outreach programs at the museum, in our schools, in the community, and online through our virtual museum. The Figge offers 17 special exhibitions each year, bringing world-class artwork from all around the world to the Quad Cities. And we have amassed an impressive art collection of over 4,000 works of Mexican colonial, Haitian, European, and American art. As we developed the programming for the 15 days of our 15th anniversary, we created events that celebrate some of the highlights of our educational programming, exhibitions, acquisitions, and collaborations with artists over the years. We also looked ahead to our next major exhibition, For America, Paintings from the National Academy of Design, which will open on February 20th, 2021. This exhibition will tell the story of a developing America and American identity and the evolution of art and artists within our country through the oldest artists' honorary society in the U.S., the National Academy of Design. For America will consist of over 90 works by renowned American artists such as Frederick Edwin Church, Celia Bow, Winslow Homer, William Merritt Chase, John Singer Sargent, Andrew Wyeth, and many more. I am thankful to all of you for your support and for joining us tonight. I know you will enjoy this special program, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Michelle. We're going to introduce Edouard by telling you a little bit about him and his background. He was born in Port-au-Prince, Haiti. His family emigrated to Puerto Rico when he was a child during the Edouard Duval-Carrié regime. Edouard studied at the University of Montreal and McGill University in Canada before graduating with a Bachelor of Arts from Loyola College in Montreal in 1978. He later attended the École Nationale Supérieure des Beaux-Arts in Paris, France, from 88 to 89. He resided in France for many years, but currently lives in Miami, Florida. And he lives among Miami's substantial Haitian immigrant population and maintains cultural ties with his homeland. His work has been exhibited in Europe and the Americas. Welcome, Edouard.
Hi, how are you? Can they see me? Yes, yes, lovely to see you. I'm delighted to be reunited with my friends in Davenport. And I'm just going to give you a tour of my studio and we'll discuss all kinds of things, like from my history with the Figge, the Davenport Museum, as it was called at one point, the Davenport Gallery, and what I'm currently working on right now, despite, this, rather strange situation that we are all in all over the planet. Anyways, how do you want me to proceed? Just to go around?
Yes.
Yes.
As always, I work as you well know, I work with projects, and my works are usually groups of works, groups of paintings, or an installation, which I present either in a museum, a gallery, or the alternative spaces. Right now, I was invited last year to work in South Africa. And the idea was to find out or try to understand, from my point of view, Haiti is the first Black republic. I think South Africa is, probably the latest. Apartheid, it's only, the collapse of apartheid is only about 20, 25 years ago. So, it was very, they are interested in seeing what I think of them, and probably, me telling them the story of Haiti as well. So I've been really going through all types of research and historical documents, and to, to present, my point of view vis-a-vis the situation of Haiti as it was, as it continued, and how it is today. And also, with my point of view, what's going on in South Africa. One of the first group of works that I decided to do was to present, for the South Africa public. There was an artist in the 19th century in Haiti that decided to do a series of all the Haitian presidents. When I really looked at them, of course, all of them have, some of them are great, some of them have dubious, histories. But the idea was, to present them and to show that, these were the first Black republic, presidents of a free Black state. And here we have, the first group of them. And as you can see, I've decided, to go somewhere different. So I'm now engraving on a mirrored plexiglass. And I've always liked to bring something new. And this engraving is due probably to my experience in South Africa, because they have developed, quite a big, quite an interesting expertise in that field of work. Because from what I understood, the anti-apartheid movement I mean, required for artists and, you know, like politicians and everything else, everybody, you know, like concerned citizens, you know, like to present, you know, like their point of view, you know, like, and the fastest way for them to do so was to use, you know, like engravings and printing shops. So, you know, like they have, I mean, like a lot of artists, I mean, when I was there, I was quite overwhelmed by by the fact that, you know, like probably everybody in South Africa, you know, like does engraving. So I decided to do that, you know, like, and try something completely different, completely new. So, I mean, here it is. I mean, some of them are much bigger. Anyways, so this is the exactly what I'm interested in these days. And as you can see, well, see, you have, you know, like two sample overture engraved on a mirror. I mean, it's quite lavish, I think. Anyways, a few years ago, I mean, here in my studio, I mean, I have all types of things. I collect a lot. I'm practically a hoarder, if you want to say, yeah, if I can use that word for, but I like to collect things, and everything that I have, you know, like somehow inspires me or influences me or informs me of one from one way or another. I mean, you're here in my space. I mean, there's a whole story about this particular space. I lived in Paris for what? For 9-10 years. And when I moved to Miami, I was looking for a space because, I mean, compared to Paris, everything, I mean, I thought Miami was very cheap, but of course it's not. But at that time, I mean, I wanted to have, I mean, I bought a house, and I finally found a friend. I mean, and we, you know, I bought this particular building together. And so we shared it for a while until he could not, I didn't want to stay in Miami, so I had to buy him off. Anyways, I owned this building, and hold and behold, a few years of owning this particular property, there was a huge project right next to me of creating a cultural center for the Haitian community, the Little Haiti Cultural Center. I mean, there was a big debacle. I mean, whether I would stay, whether they would evict me. I mean, whether they beg. I mean, what's the name of the I mean, to take away the property and pay me very little. Anyways, after a while, the city decided to leave me here. So now I'm totally encircled by this cultural center, which, I mean, and literally have managed, you know, like to keep it alive, because, I mean, it's a very complicated situation. I mean, I have to raise money. I mean, you well know, I mean, you were mentioning that earlier in your introduction. I mean, that the community has to support in centers and institutions like this one. I've managed to garner some interest by all types, including even the French government. And we've started this association called the Haitian Cultural Alliance, which I'm the president of right now. And we do projects, you know, like 2 or 3 times a year, which are to, I mean, my idea is to place Haiti in a much larger context. And I wanted to make it more of a Caribbean kind of, I mean, the whole of the Caribbean, and even the, when you look at it carefully, the whole of the South part of the United States are, you know, like have, you know, like a very, very similar history, and there are great connections. And I mean, sometimes, you know, like hidden, sometimes, you know, like very well known, that are part and parcel of, you know, like not only the history of Haiti, the history of the Caribbean, and the history of the south of the United States. I mean, basically, you know, like they were all plantation economies. So, I mean, that is a fact. And I've always been, I mean, for the last 10 years with this Global Caribbean project that I instituted, I've been trying to look at what that history is, but at the same time, I mean, using that particular history to reunite the Caribbean and try to present contemporary artists here in Miami, which has become, you know, like, I mean, a hub or the epicenter of contemporary art, at least for the month of December with the Basel art fairs. Anyways, I'll be talking of all sorts of things, but I just want to show you things as well. That was another period, this particular work that I have behind me. I wanted to use, I mean, they've invited me to do the second, I mean, they built a new museum in Miami called the Perez Art Museum. And I was the second artist selected. They wanted me for the opening as well, but I just didn't have the material, and I didn't want to present something, I mean, that everybody has seen already. So I asked them to, like to postpone it, and I worked for a year to create a tie between the United States and the Caribbean and South America by looking at the 19th century, all these artists. I mean, apparently you will have one of them, Frederick Church. I mean, to look at the 19th century traveler artists that went down to the Caribbean and to South and created this whole idea of these places, like as, like sea, sun, beaches, beautiful, like environments, beautiful vistas and landscape. So I said, how did they, I mean, how could they create something like that when we all know that these were plantations full of slaves, full of, like, I mean, the whole, that horrible situation. And they managed to recreate. The idea was for I mean, I think it was the Monroe Doctrine that the United States, like in its nascent imperialist kind of way, wanted the Americas for the Americans. I mean, the America meaning North and South, North America and South America and everything in between. And the people there said, well, I mean, we have our ties with, like Europe and others, and we need to sell our product. So, I mean, of course, again, the United States had to go and scramble, like to figure out how they would, like promote and manage this new doctrine that they had installed. And one of the things that they did is to create, I mean, like ask artists to go down, I mean, especially the whole group from the Hudson School, to go and like create, like, I mean, revisit the Americas. And I decided to look into these paintings and realize that, like a lot was said, but a lot was not said as well. So I created this exhibit for the Perez, which was called, Imagine Landscapes, because everything that was presented by these artists was a revisitation, a reassessment of, of the thing. So, I mean, the show went on, and I mean, they were of that scale, and this was probably the study that I presented for them to look into it. It was not part of the show, this particular painting, but it was, like, I mean, my ideas of where I was going for that particular exhibit. Unfortunately, I don't have any of these works left here. They're all gone, thank God. I mean, I don't need any more things here. And so what else? So this is, I mean, I'll tell you about everything I have as well.
Edouard, can I ask you something about?
Absolutely, yes, that's what I want.
The Perez painting you just talked about. It is a painting, is it?
It is. It's not on canvas. It's painted on metal, on aluminum sheets. And I've literally, painted the whole thing with tubes of glitter glue. So literally, this is a
glitter glue.
Glitter glue. So this is literally with tube silver on black. And I mean, it's quite a, I mean, I think they're very different. So it was, I mean, that was the idea behind that exhibit, to create, because all of these, all of these artists that went down presented, like this very beautiful landscape during the day. So, like they literally created a whole vision of the Caribbean, like that was, like blue sky, like wonderful vegetation and stuff like that. So I've always, but of course, in all of these paintings of that Hudson School, there was very rarely anybody in them. So they were just spectacular vistas that they were presenting, devoid of people. So I've always said to myself, like little did they know that there were people behind all these plants and all this vegetation, like lurking about. So, I mean, I decided to make them at night. So, like after light rain and the moon shining. So the whole idea was to create this, like between dusk and night, of like of all these, like, I mean, beautiful paintings. Literally, they were taken. I was taking these paintings, which were not usually very big, and blowing them up to this kind of scale. Yes.
Edouard, excuse me, it's Randy. Is there any way that the Perez has in their previous exhibitions your work online, or is there some way we could see this body of work? You said it's all sold now. Did you?
Yes.
Did you hear me?
They do have the exhibit was 4 years ago, and it's well documented, and they also printed a very lavish catalog for it. And I'm very proud of that particular event. The exhibit, unfortunately, did not manage to travel per se, like as a whole, but pieces are here and there. And of all places, the Miami airport has like half of that suite of paintings, like
wonderful.
Yeah, so like I'm very happy about that. So people continue seeing them, and I got a completely new, different kind of public looking at them, like on a daily basis. So I'm very. It was a very successful exhibit.
Right.
Thank
you.
Yes. I mean, just why does he have so many globes? I mean, this is probably the only thing left of my education. I'm a geographer, urban planner. That's what I studied in Canada, in Montreal, and really never worked in this. I got my summa cum laude. I mean, I was pretty good at it, but never really managed to delve into that particular field. But it informs me, and just, I'm interested in globes. Yes. There was another particular exhibit that I did, which was very interesting, and this was one of the paintings involved with that. And it was trying to, I'm always trying to tie Haiti in a larger landscape, and realizing I was invited to give a talk at the University of FSU, Florida State University in Tallahassee, and there is a French town in Tallahassee. There is I realized immediately that there was something going on that I was very curious about. So with many questions, I was taken on a tour of, believe it or not, there is a Bureau of Antiquities in this country, and there are 4 of them. One for the Northeast, one for the Southeast, Northwest, and Southwest. And the one for the Southeast is in Tallahassee. And I said, I would like to visit them and see what they have. What do they own? And believe it or not, I just asked them the simple question, do you have anything from Haiti? They said, yes, we do. We have a whole room of implements and machinery and stuff like that. I said, from what date? Oh, yes, they came here. It's like a very convoluted story. After the Haitian Revolution, the French moved to the northern part of Florida, which was not even Florida yet. And tried to do sugar, but it was a total fiasco, because there's a line, near Lake Okeechobee. You can, at 1 foot south of that line, like sugar cane grows. A foot, above that line, it will not grow. And most of these, of course, Florida was still Spanish, and they left Haiti with all of their equipment. And what is even more extraordinary, they left with a lot of slaves. So the northern part of Florida, has a history with Haiti that nobody knew. Nobody knew about it. Of course, we all know the story of the French, like leaving Haiti to go to New Orleans and Cuba and places like that. But I never imagined, that the north of Florida had, like a similar kind of history. So, we created a very interesting exhibit, which encompassed, that particular history, and also how I perceive that. So the name of it escapes me right now. Anyways, there's a catalog for it. And it was very, a very interesting exhibit, because it brought all of these histories, to the forefront that people, hardly knew about. And it was very interesting. To organize that exhibit with all the scholars and the students up at FSU. So this particular painting is all about that. The whole discussion of, at the American Revolution was, what do we do with the slaves, And of course, the great debates were happening in Washington over the situation. And the southern states, of course, I said, absolutely not. We're not going to liberate them, and because we need them, and proof, we're going to do sugar in the South. And, hold and behold, the whole business, even though the United States was at war with Britain. There was some war in India, so there were no more cotton coming from India, so they needed cotton badly. So despite the fact that, like they are at war, I mean, businessmen from Liverpool were very interested in making sure that cotton was produced in the southern part of the United States. Hence, they needed the slaves, and they needed that kind of, that kind of work to make it, how would I say it, profitable. And the whole question of slavery, I mean, like, which was being debated, all the time, ended up in a civil war, in this country. So, I mean, and when you realize all of these stories and how they involve not just this country, but their neighbors and places like Haiti, places like, the South, I mean, the whole, it's to me fascinating. And I've been, really looking towards all of these stories. And I mean, knowing pertinently well that they've been either erased, hidden, or, considered insignificant. And, as we can see today, these histories, this country will have to revise its whole, history to really encompass, really what happened and how it developed, So,
Edouard.
yes, in this particular painting, we have, of course, the cotton. The United States was producing cotton, and they managed to also fabricate, cloth. So, the dresses of American women were becoming bigger and bigger and bigger, hence this kind of crinoline kind of dress. But as you can see, her head is like of this woman, is a cotton tree. So it's a very nice tree, but at the same time, to pick it, you see the twigs that holds the cotton have a lot of spines, and it's very, very difficult to gather the cotton. So you have her, which, of course, she has, the red, white, and blue, and the symbols of French liberty. And at the same time, you can see at the bottom, the island of Haiti, half of the island is burning. It was about slaves and the slave rebelling. At the same time, the United States, we have the first gunboat in the the USS Texas, which was the first full metal boat ever built in this country. So it's like just, snippets of history to make sure people realize that there's like a lot more to what one knows and what one sees, and that one has to be really careful and really try to understand the reasons for it, how it happened. The repercussions here and there. To me, it's a fascinating story. And when I get to this thing, I find it fascinating that, how come this is not, written in history books? I went to university in Canada, partly in the United States. These are stories that if you don't really look for them, you will never know them. And I find it that it's for me a subject of inspiration, because I can recreate or try to give sense to all of these stories, which are very complicated and very, not simple at all.
What you're talking about tonight, both as a geographer and an historian, helps us understand exactly why art brings the artist's perspective to information we might already have or not, and shows us a whole different perspective of the kinds of things that you have seen and you understand. I have to say that looking at the Haitian collection at the Figge, I've learned a great deal about history just from having to explain those works of art, and you're doing exactly that now.
Thank you. That's the aim. I find it, to me at least, is the most pleasant way. I don't have to write pieces, and I just give my whole idea. It's my inspiration, and at the same time, if you take care to really look at it, there is a lot of information given there. I'm not sure proselytizing or trying to but I present something, but there is something behind it, you know? So, I mean, I think that's the magic of art. I mean, and to me, that's very important. Very much so. Let's continue the tour. So this building I bought, and it's about, you know, like, I mean, 4,000 square foot. I mean, I bought it and it's in the center of Little Haiti, which was considered a very poor or, you know, like isolated neighborhood. And I said, you know, I mean, I moved to Miami knowing that there was, and it was probably, you know, I mean, at the time when I thought about it, I thought it was the only place in the United States, or probably anywhere else on the planet, that had the name of Haiti attached to, you know, like to a parcel of land, to a neighborhood. Well, I found out that that's not so. They're all over the West, the East Coast of the United States. In the 19th century, the abolitionists, the American abolitionists decided, you know, like, okay, there was that movement to go, you know, like to send the slaves back to Africa. But at one point they decided, you know, like, okay, it might be cheaper, it might be more interesting to send them closer. They sent them to Haiti. And of course, they were English-speaking Afro-Americans. And when they got to Haiti, they tried to manage the situation, but it was very difficult. And a lot of them came back to the United States, even though they had reached a place that was, you know, like supposedly much more, you know, like amenable, you know, like free. They were free, and the government of Haiti had tried to provide them with, because they demanded. I mean, the Haitian government was quite intelligent in that they wanted to have tradesmen. I mean, like people that could use machinery. I mean, that could make shoes, that could make cloths, that could make. I mean, so there was a big. I mean, I think there were like 3,000 or 4,000 families that went down to Haiti. Of, you know, like today there might be like 2 or 3 that are very well known and that are part of that history, but a lot of them came back to the United States and went back to wherever they came from and called their neighborhood not Haiti but Haiti. There's about 6 Haiti, I mean, between North Carolina and New Jersey, I think. I mean, they're small Black communities and they have the name of Haiti. I mean, that's another fascinating thing. You know, like to know that these people had gone to that island and came back. You know, because I mean, of course they didn't speak the language. I mean, it was very difficult, and they decided, you know, like that they were better off here. So I mean, that's another bit of history that nobody knew, and I didn't know it. You know, I mean, I knew they had come to Haiti, but not that they had gone back and called their neighborhoods. I mean, there's one that I was quite surprised in Durham. I mean, I went to Duke and they took me to this thing. I mean, I hate that. When you see it, I mean, I didn't know what they were talking about, but it's when you see it written that you realize, I mean, they're talking about Haiti. Of course, it's a black community. And in the center, there is a church that was built in the 1860s. And it has a huge spire. And on top of the spire, there's a voodoo symbol. There's a voodoo veve of Erzuli on top of it. I said, this is like unbelievable. I mean, you know, like that, you know, like how history, you know, like how these kind of currents go back and forth. So, I mean, living in the United States right now, I'm very interested in those kind of, I mean, little histories, but, you know, I mean, to me, they're important. And I think, you know, they're fascinating, you know, because, I mean, yes, they've been discarded. I mean, it's some professor that told me, but Haiti, you know, it means Haiti. I said, okay, now I get it. Anyways, it's like all of these histories. Let me show you some of my new work. And I'm totally fascinated with this engraving thing. And as you can see, I mean, I prepared this for that particular show in South Africa. But, you know, like I was trying to have them, I went down there and I've tried to have them replicate them, because I mean, that's the idea of printing, of etching and printing. And this is what we managed to produce over there. So it's not the same thing, but I think they're just as interesting. I've never yet showed them. I'm waiting to take them back for my exhibit at the National Gallery of Johannesburg, which will be happening, I don't know when. But I mean, what we decided to do with the University of Johannesburg, where, you know, like, I mean, the other ones, you know, like organizing this whole project, that we were going to create a book. So, you know, like I'm here with Martina, and she's been, you know, like recording all of this, and we will, you know, like publish a book concerning that. I mean, that whole history of Haiti vis-a-vis the history of South Africa. So it's quite an interesting thing. Another element that I've been selected. I mean, I'm one of the finalists for this huge commission, which will be happening downtown Miami at the port for this gigantic building. I mean, I don't know if they'll have any money to do this, but I decided to create this gigantic veves, and they are bright red, that will, you know, like adorn the building. And it would be, I mean, I think the building will be serving as a parking lot to the Royal Caribbean cruise line. And so, you know, I mean, I did like a whole, you know, like, what do you call it? Like a map of where, you know, you go into the Caribbean, you know. So, and it's using cut out metal. I mean, here I've been trying to do all of these things, trying to bring them down to Haiti to see if they could make them. I mean, these were, after the earthquake, if you remember, all the churches came down. And one of the most, people that raised the most funds, and sent them down to Haiti because of that disaster, was the Catholic Church. But they decided, you know, like, one part of the money was used into rebuilding all their churches. So I told them, you know, like, why don't we do all of the windows with, you know, like cut metal, and that we can do them industrially, that they would look, you know, like better. It would not be recuperated metal. It would be done, you know, like properly. So I did all of this work to show them. And when the bishop, like the School of Bishops of Haiti showed up here to see the work, of course I had Agwe, I didn't have the Virgin Mary, you know. So they just looked at me and they said, if I'm crazy, and they left running. And that was the end of that particular project. But I really like it, and I've been using that particular medium of the industrially cut. This is done with a water jet, and I think they're quite nice. And I managed to lit them up. I've done different projects with those. I'm going to show you another one, which is very nice. This is my life as a tree. And it's again cut metal, but this one, it's much more elaborate than the other one because I've incorporated, images of either my work and also created, all types of things in it. So it lights up, and it's at night. It's quite stunning when it's dark. It's quite magical. So what else could I talk about? Yes, there's so much here. I don't even see them anymore. I did an exhibit. They invited me to do an exhibit at the Museum of Contemporary Art here in Miami, and I wanted again to bring something new to the table and stuff like that, and to tell the history of sugar. That's one of the. There were like 3 or 4 sculptures of this scale involved in it, and they are flying boats, but they were initially made to be, they were supposed to be made in sugar, but of course I had a trail of ants here, the day I started, so I dropped that. So I've tried to glitter them up to look like sugar. In the voodoo pantheon, in the history of voodoo and the voodoo, religion, the gods are not in the sky, they are underwater. So this is all about, yes.
What is the material of that? You started with sugar, but then the ants got to it. So what did you replace it with? Well,
I had to make them in the boats were made on resin, in plastic, and then I had to cover them in they were supposed to be covered in sugar, in what do you call it? The ice.
Icing sugar.
Icing sugar.
Yes.
And I really, from everywhere, the ants got news of that, and I had to stop that immediately. So now they're covered with this material, with this kind of cement, but glittered up, and white crystals and stuff like that I crushed. Anyways, they do look like sugar,
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Yeah. What else did I want to do? Oh, another interesting thing that I did when I was in South Africa, and all this engraving thing. I wanted to illustrate. I don't know if you're aware of it. There's a wonderful book by a Cuban author. His name is Edouard Duval-Carrié, who went to Haiti in the 40s and wrote literally probably the most beautiful book ever written on the history of Haiti, on Haiti. It's called The Kingdom of This World. And I mean, since I was very young, I mean, probably in my teens, I read it and I was quite fascinated by the book, and I've read and reread it. And asked around, and I realized that they had never illustrated it. I mean, I think it's the Bible. I mean, that it's the Bible of magical realism, which is what Haiti is all about. You know, I mean, like, things are so crazy there, so off the wall, that, you know, like, and the book translates that so well. And it's quite, I've always thought that, you know, I mean, I thought that everybody, I mean, every Haitian or even Caribbean artist would have used that book to I mean, like, it is being used. I mean, it's been, you know, like, a very influential, I mean, the whole coinage of magical realism and other, you know, like, I mean, the surrealism, Caribbean surrealism, I mean, stems from that particular book. Anyways, I realized that it had never been illustrated, so I illustrated it, and I made this artist's book, which is, you know, like, it has the 15 chapters of the book, and I illustrated every chapter, and I've even used, you know, like, the sentences that, you know, like, to describe what was happening in the scenes. There are 15 of them. Anyways, and this was done in South Africa. I'm very pleased. I mean, I went there and I was determined to get this production, you know, going. What else could we talk about? I unfortunately, I just sent, you know, like, I mean, probably the largest engraving ever. I mean, it's like, it's 10 feet tall by 13 or 14 feet long. And it's the royal portrait of the Kingdom of Haiti, which was, you know, Henry Christophe and his wife. But it's right now at it was done, and they wanted to exhibit it at the Bass Museum on Miami Beach. But I mean, they've picked it up and probably it's installed, but nothing has happened yet. I mean, we expect to get an invitation to go and see it, but with the situation of this COVID, everything is like in limbo somewhere. So, you know, like, we'll have to see about that. So that's another project that's pending.
So, Edouard, this has been fascinating. I'm sure that we're not the only ones listening to you and wishing we could be down there and look closely at all the work you've talked about, because it's, as we know, museum people know, that you want to see the original and not see a reproduction on a screen. And you've just shown us so many things. Do you promise that when people from the Figge come down there and contact you, that they might be able to come?
They are always welcome here. This is your house in Miami, okay?
Well, I knew you would say that. I knew you would say that because you're so generous. We will take this opportunity to ask a couple of questions, and the rest of the audience, if you have questions, you can post them in the chat room. One of the things that I think I've discussed this with you before, in looking at the Figge's Haitian collection, the curatorial people have often talked about, where do we take it from here? We can expand it in certain ways. They're trying to make decisions. Most of what grows the collection at the moment are gifts. We've not been actively buying Haitian art. And there's been a discussion that is exactly what you talked about, making it a more global Caribbean collection. We don't really know how to start with that, perhaps. But then there were other suggestions that maybe we should look at contemporary Haitian artists who aren't even working in Haiti and are responding to the global art community making work that doesn't look anything like the traditional Haitian art that the first and second generation Haitian artists painted. Could you comment on, you know, our collection, what do you
Yes.
think we should do with it?
Well, I mean, there are two ways to go about it. I mean, and you've spelled them out quite well. I mean, this collection is very important, not only, you know, like, I mean, for Haiti, but for history of art as well, because it's a moment in Haitian history, of Haitian art that is like, I mean, really precious. I mean, what you have, and you should cherish it, because, I mean, probably it will never exist as it is, as what you have right now. So it's a moment in history of an evolving situation. And myself, I realized that, you know, like, I mean, a while back that you know, like, yes, Haitian art, but I think we live in a context in Haiti that, you know, like, we feel isolated, you know, I mean, it's a French-speaking island, it's the first Black Republic, all of these things, you know, like, I mean, put us in a very peculiar position where, you know, like, the majority of our neighbors are either Anglophone or Spanish-speaking. So I've visited all of the islands. I mean, I've made a point of going to all of the Caribbean. I've been to Cuba, to Santo Domingo, Puerto Rico. I lived there in Puerto Rico, went all the way down to Curacao and Aruba and places like that. And I've realized that we have a very similar history. And I think that, you know, like, it would be more intelligent to take it as a region, because it is not yet being studied. This has been my fight here in Miami, to make sure that this city, which is totally part and parcel, I mean, I don't even call Miami south of the United States. I call it north of the Caribbean, because really, we, you know, like, Miami protrudes and like, to go anywhere in the Caribbean, you have to come to Miami to go to the next island, because there's not enough traffic between the islands themselves. So you have to come to Miami. And so Miami has become, I mean, I've been trying to tell that, you know, like, that they should be doing, I mean, like, concentrate their interest in the region rather than, you know, like, peculiar artists or particular histories within the island. So they have, I mean, at the New Perez Museum, they have formed a center for Caribbean studies, I mean, art studies. So, you know, like, let's see how that develops. But I think that, you know, like, I mean, the Figge would create quite a stir in the region by considering that there is a common history, you know, like, and ties within those histories, you know, like, between the Anglophone Caribbean, the Spanish Caribbean. Even though everybody says that they are not the same like the other ones, they are the same. They have a history that are very much, you know, like, entrenched in the region, in their particular history. They were colonies. They were, you know, like, mostly plantation. I mean, they were producing for the European market, now probably for the world market, and particularly the United States. So, you know, like, the region as a whole is very coherent as far as its history, plus the whole history of slavery. All of them had it. You understand? So it's I think it would be an interesting endeavor, I mean, for a museum, you know, like, I'm already doing that. I have this program here in Miami where during the Basel, I mean, I've managed through the French government to have ties with them. So I'm part of their I mean, whatever I do, you know, like, they want to know about it and they promote it. So every year I do, you know, like, this thing that I call the Global Caribbean, where not only I'm doing surveys of contemporary art from the region, I mean, from the islands themselves, but also the diasporas, because they're important diasporas, you know, not only all over these countries, but also in Europe. I mean, like, France has, like, a very important Haitian, I mean, Guadeloupe, I mean, like, their islands are part of their territory, they're French. But also, you know, like, I mean, they are very interested. I mean, places like in the Netherlands have, you know, like, the Caribbean former colonies and so on. So there is, like, all of this, you know, like, histories and groups of people, but that share a particular history. And taking it from that angle, I think it would be a good thing for, like increase your interest in contemporary art, but not only from Haiti, because I mean, I just presented, I don't know if you're aware of it, a fascinating exhibit which was presented in New York. I co-curated it with my friend Leah Gordon, and it was on what is being produced in Haiti right now. And it was called Port-au-Prince. So we looked at the neighborhoods in Port-au-Prince which were very productive artistically. And I mean, the exhibit was very well received. It came here to Miami. Maybe, like the Figge should be looking at traveling that particular exhibit because it is incredible. It is like, I mean, what you think, I mean, it's like the antithesis of what your collection is. It would be like, okay, what's happening in Haiti right now? Check it out. And it's like, oh my God.
Could you send us some information or send it to Curatorial about that? That would be very interesting.
Yeah, no, it is. I mean, you already started collecting some of these artists. You have maybe like Eugène. I mean, you have that boat. You have,
yes, right.
Okay. No, but you should see the rest. I mean, like, and there was not only that, it's like a really well, it was organized by the, what's the name of that gallery in New York? Pioneer Works. It's like this really hoity-toity gallery in Red Hook in Brooklyn. I mean, and they have like this gigantic warehouse where they used to fabricate subways. So the exhibit, like, I mean, like really, it was like very imposing.
Yeah.
And so it was here as well in Miami. I mean, there were like so many articles in the papers that Haiti always surprises one. So Haiti itself is not over. But, let's try to put it in a larger context. And I think everybody would be, like, like you've done Didier Williams. There are many others from Haiti, but there are many, it would be interesting to look at a region and to see the rapports, not only of Haiti, but the whole region to the United States, because, I'm interested in Haiti, but every island has like a history with the United States in one way or another, so it would be interesting for a neutral place like the middle of the United States to look at these things without no a prioris, like, okay, we're just doing a study, and maybe like once or two, every 2 years or every 3 years, do like a little survey. You understand? I would love to participate in that and organize something like that so that it, of course, these kind of exhibits do cost, but at the same time, they are not, over. But it would be really interesting. And we already have other allies in the region between what you call them, the Waterloo Gallery and the Grinnell University with my friend Alfredo, which has been, which raised money to create a whole study of the collections of Haitian art in the United States. So he's been in touch with you guys, with the staff at the Figge. Anyways, we're continuing. Yeah.
You've given us a lot of ideas. We just need the money.
Yes, we have to raise money. I
proceed.
urge whoever is listening to this thing to contribute whatever they can to this particular, because it's important, to know. Yes, as Monroe decided that for Americans today, we decide culture is hemispheric. You understand? And there's so many ties between both hemispheres, and start isolating, there is, every country has like this propensity to isolate themselves, thinking that, okay, that they have plenty to do by themselves. But, it's good to look at it, in a larger context, especially a context like, these are the neighbors, immediate neighbors to the United States. Of course, there's a whole other dialogue going on in the West with Mexico and the corridor down to South America. But this East Coast has like serious, ties, from New York all the way down to Miami, with all of the Caribbean. So, that's what I try to do. And the region is lacking in coherence because each of these little islands cannot promote, a cultural agenda, if it's not done, at a regional level. Now I'm battling with all the embassies, here to see if they can give me $3 towards the project. So I could put their labels on it, to say that they're at least aware of what I'm trying to do. It's complicated, but, it's interesting. The university are listening to me. So, and also, the Perez Museum, which is, has become, as beautiful as the Figge, has become the pride and joy of the city of Miami. So everybody's wants to, to donate. I hope people realize how special the Figge is for Davenport, and that they should support it.
Can I ask you one more question?
Yes.
You do go back and forth to Haiti frequently. You have family there. I'm wondering, what is the situation in Haiti now for the artists that are working there? I understand that the earthquake largely destroyed the art center. Have they a place to go? Have they rebuilt it? Is the museum still there? What is happening?
The museum is closed. Of course, now everything is closed because of COVID. But yes, there are good news. The center, despite the lack of, the passing of Francine and stuff like that, has managed to garner, a board that has been very active. And they've just bought this splendid house further up from where it was, the original center was. And it's in Paco. I don't think you ever came to my house. It's like when I lived there. It's about 4 houses away from where I used to live, but I don't think you've ever been to my house in Port-au-Prince. But it's a lovely house. It's a big house. In the same idea of as the center was, which is pretty active, by the way. Even though the buildings are down, they've managed to do all sorts of things with their collection, and they've garnered the support of the Soros Foundation. Maybe I'm wrong, or some other foundation, which has been very active, and they've been promoting and presenting the artists in Haiti and creating exhibits, I think they are as active as when I was there, if not more. And they were quite helpful when I was organizing that particular exhibit in New York. And the artists, it's changed as well. So, they are there. And I think, and I always say it, thank God for the Centre d'Art. It's the only artistic, institution, because at this point, it's not just a gallery, it's like a real institution that has managed to support, garner interest, and promote, Haitian art. And they've done it, graciously, despite the changing tastes. You understand? At the beginning, people like Dr. Neiswanger and the whole contingency from Davenport were interested in one particular, of which probably I'm a stepping stones away from that, but I was totally enthralled with that, and it's a lovely thing. But things are evolving, and one has to be aware of that and be, interested in it. It's a major collection you have. And I hope whomever from the city, the community hears, it's very important to have, centers like that. I'm sure, with this, what do you call it? With this thing that Grinnell University is doing with the NEA, a lot of scholars will be, invited, and many of them will be studying not only the collection itself, but who, how, and why, this was collected in such a way by Davenport. So you will get, substantiation for all the efforts that have been made at Davenport and at the Figge for that particular collection.
Okay.
So, just give it time. Haiti is a little thing, so we have to create enough drumming so that we can, do things that are interesting.
Oh. Well, there's some comments on the chat room, but I don't know whether there are questions there. If anyone else has a question, somebody said,
Mary Ellen.
Mary Ellen Gilroy, Edouard makes an excellent point about presenting art of the Caribbean as a whole. For many Anglophone islands, Haiti is an ideal historically and culturally. They see themselves as part of a cohesive cultural and artistic continuum.
Very well
So
put.
you have presented a lot of ideas about that.
Mrs. Gilroy is the consummate diplomat. She was in Haiti with her husband on a diplomatic mission and are very much attached to that nation. And she is exactly to the point. I'm glad that she caught that. You know, it is, yes, it is part of a region. And we could include, I'm always saying that to the, like distress or amazement of everyone, that the South of the United States is part of that history. You understand? Between New Orleans, and this whole thing in the Florida. And I'm sure, this, it's a very interesting story that needs to be, that we really study it and put it in context.
So, Edouard, Mary Ellen has said, Edouard, tu me fais rigoler. Merci, en ville. and she wondered about the work behind your left shoulder, right behind there, yeah.
Which one? I collect all sorts of things. And as I said, I'm a hoarder. I collect things from everywhere. So I don't know what she's looking at. Let's put my work. Okay, let's start. I'm not a ethnographer. Right. These are my, some things I've been playing with this engraving procedure. So, as you can see, my work also has evolved, which is, I'm very proud of all I've done. I'm delighted and I'm so thankful that in an installation like the major ones that was commissioned by you guys at the Figge is there. At one point, I'm sure it will be, I know that you've made efforts in bringing it out because it's like a major endeavor for me. And I'm so happy that you have it, you understand? So I'm very proud of the
There's one other comment, and it's from our Andrew Wallace, our Director of Exhibitions and Collections, and he said he had the pleasure of seeing the exhibition in Red Hook, and it was great. So that's from Andrew.
Good. Tell Andrew that the exhibit is still here in the United States, and it's one container, no crates, no nothing. It's all packed up neatly in a container, and I think that it should be considered at the Figge. I'm sure it will shock a lot of people there, I warn you. But for the sake of modern art, this is like a new departure, of an expression, of a country that has gone through so much. And the last blow was, that earthquake, and and probably all of these artists that are in that particular show are responding to the, to the weight of all of this history. So, it's fascinating. It is fascinating. Thank you. Tell Andrew to thank you.
Well, you've been fascinating for us this evening, Edouard. We also want to thank the audience members who joined us tonight. Please remember to bid at our online auction. We have beautiful original artworks by Ellen Wagner, Tim Schiffer, our previous director, and Didier William. We also have auction items like a party for 20 people at Up, located in the current hotel. And I must say that Randy and I bid on that last year, and we had a great time with a great group of people. So consider that. There's also a membership to the Outing Club, a virtual concert with Steinway artist Julian Gargiulo, if I'm saying that right. Gargiulo. An in-home dinner for 8, virtual wine and art class, and much more. If you go to the Figge website, you'll be able to bid on these things. We hope that you continue to join us for many more of our virtual events during our 15-day celebration. We have a variety of other things to offer. There's a John Deere art collection tour, a Caribbean cooking class, the art of beer, and more. And don't forget the auction items. You can also support our mission by donating today. Your gift, as I said earlier, will be matched dollar for dollar up to $5,000 thanks to the generosity of Tom and Jennifer Figge. All proceeds support the Figge's art and education programs, enabling us to bring art and people together at a time when our community needs it most. Go to the Figge Art site and follow us on social media and be part of the fun. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight's event. Good night.